So welcome back to the best turbo selection series for the Focus ST. Today we're going to be covering the G30-770 and everything you need to know, so it'll help you make your decision on purchasing this turbo if you decide to go that route. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys have this turbo or you plan to get this turbo, or if not, what other turbos do you guys run? So here is some of the specs. There's the code number from ATP's website for their kit. There is some other things. They offer this in a 61 and 83 turbine housing AR, and also a 101 if you're really feeling frisky and want to do some drag racing. This turbo comes with a bigger framed compressor housing compared to the G30-660. So the compressor housing has a 4-inch anti-surge inlet compared to the 3-inch. So the compressor housing dimensionally is bigger than the smaller framed G30-660 or even the G25s, but it also has a 0.72 AR compressor housing versus the 70 AR on the 660. And I believe the G25 series turbos, don't quote me, but I believe those are also 70 ARs. So that's another big thing. So you get more flow with the 770, which is really nice. I would honestly highly recommend this turbo for anyone that wants to make over 500 wheel horsepower. So here is the compressor wheel specs. 58, 71. You got your trim. It's got a large, like I said, frame compressor housing. So it's a 72 AR, 4-inch inlet. Turbine wheels, a 55, and it's also a 60. So, there's that. Here is the compressor map for you guys that understand these. So we're looking around this range. It's really efficient. And this over the 500 wheel horsepower range for sure. Between 500 and 600, this turbo is really efficient. So we got the 6183, and then we have a 101 option, which is like a custom order only. This turbo, now depending on the setup, depending if you're built motor or not, but average, this is going to be spooling starting at around 2500, maybe a little bit later, maybe a little bit sooner, depends on the elevation and tune is all. Starts at 2500, and you're going to see boost range around, the 33 to 36 range. I give it around 34. That's where you're going to see 20 pounds of boost. So maybe even 25. This depends on if you're on E85 or pump gas. So for the supporting mods on the 770, you don't need a built motor, but it's good to have this turbo if you decide in the future that you would want to have a built engine. You can run this on a stock motor, just so you know. You just won't be running as much boost, and it'll be running really efficiently. It still will spool pretty decent, even without upgraded cams, for example. But when you decide to build your motor, you're going to have a big enough turbo for, say, over 550, 600 wheel horsepower, no problem. It's going to be still in the efficiency range. That being said, the basic bolt-ons, anything you can have for this turbo, it doesn't really matter. You can upgrade your downpipe. You can have, catted downpipe. You're just going to be restricting the turbo more, so that's not going to help. You can run your stock air intake air box with a, AM drop-in. I would highly recommend that if you're going to go that route. You can run the upgraded intake pipe. Definitely want to do that, especially with a 4-inch inlet. You're going to need a 4-inch by 3-inch or whatever you want to match up for your intake pipe, just so you know. And it's going to be a 90-degree sharp 90, not a long radius 90. You also need aux fuel or high pressure fuel pump kit from XDI or Nostrum. And that's only if you're going past 400 wheel horsepower. And if you need even more, E85 for sure is going to get you there. I highly recommend just running straight E85 because mixing E85 with fuel does cause problems with corrosion, as the E85 absorbs water in fuel and creates an acidity. So just keep that in mind. It's better to run straight 85. So if you're below the 450 or 500 wheel horsepower mark, I would say stick with the ESP Elliott Specialized Performance intercooler. And above that, I would recommend the CVF intercooler, because best quality intercooler on the market. It supports up to 700 wheel horsepower, no problem. Use code BB5 at checkout on cvffab.com for anything on there for the EcoBoost platforms, not just the Focus ST. So the horsepower range for the 2.0 is going to be the 480 to 550 efficiency range. That's where I'm putting it at. The max, I put it at 620 to 630. These horsepower ranges are going to be for a built engine, so just keep that in mind. Anything below this, you're not going to be pushing a lot of boost anyway. So, you can run this turbo on a non-built engine, 20 PSI, no problem. Past that, I wouldn't really go anymore, because it's just going to be too much power unless you're, just not pushing a lot of timing or something on your tune. But the price, so at Elliott Specialized Performance, he offers it for $26.65. I just rounded off to $2,700 because you're gonna have taxes. I believe shipping is free. ATP offers it for $3,000. So the turbo upgrades that you can do to make this even more an efficient setup. And now you can do this with stock engine before building, but you definitely want to do this if you're running a built engine and you're trying to get everything out of your setup. So that being said, you're going to want the Arc Enemy kit. So it has a dump kit for your wastegate. It's going to be a Tile 44 MVS, or it's going to be your Turbo Smart 45. It's going to come with your manifold. And it's also, you're going to want the downpipe. So the G series downpipe eliminates the restriction from ATP. So this adapter here is not full 3-inch. It's like 2.5, 2.25. So there's a restriction. Now, when you get rid of this restriction and you run full 3-inch, essentially they're just cutting this and putting a full 90 on here, so it fits. So you can actually do that with your downpipe. It's just like a straight full 90 instead of this curve here. So when my focus was down on compression in 2019, at the end, in January of 2020, I wanted to test the G30-770, and ATP told me that it would not fit. I wanted them to put it as a package deal like they would normally sell for their Focus ST kits. I bought the kit. They sent it to me, even though they said it wouldn't fit. I told them it would, dimensionally, it would fit. So I shaved the axle top bracket and got that clear on the compressor housing. I also ran the 101 housing, so when you run this one right here, that actually, you need to shave off, I think it's the old rear motor mount bracket for the downpipe. That little dowel, I had to shave off a little bit on the top of that as well to clear. But other than that, the 61 and 83 AR housings fit, no problem. So just keep that in mind. But it's pretty cool to be part of that, and that's why the G30-770 has a soft spot in my heart. Now, that being said, they end up selling these afterwards. I confirmed everything. A 2.0, I would run the 61 or 83. If you're not a built engine, I'd run the 61 for a better spool. If you are a built engine and you're wanting to make, over 500 wheel horsepower on the 2.0, definitely go 83. If you're drag racing, do 101, because it's going to allow for another 30 wheel horsepower roughly, just because of the flow. So keep that in mind. The spool differences are going to be about 300-400 in between each AR. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.